Have you noticed over the past few years how what you remember from history class, the ideas around the past and what it looked like, seems to have changed? You notice how a lot of people nowadays talk about a past that you don't even recognize. You know that what these people tell you about history can't be true because the past you remember is different. Then who's right? You clearly remember your history class and the past can't change. That would be ridiculous. Or would it? Hi, I'm a student of history who's currently on track for a master's degree in history, and I've been studying for the better part of 4 years now. It's not incorrect to say that the role of a historian is to accurately map the landscape of the past, and it's only natural to assume that the past remains, because that's how we experience time, right? When you break a piece of fine china, it's done. Like, you can't undo it. The past is written. Now, this will be a sort of ridiculously contrived and convoluted way of delivering this analogy, but bear with me. What if I were to buy an identical piece of china and place it somewhere in your apartment without you noticing for weeks even? Then, way later, when you discover it, I say broken, you never broke it. Maybe you start to doubt whether or not you remember it correctly. Already, the past is changing. That's because the past is not actually an immutable thing of the distant, literal past. The past is now. The past is what we now, right now, believe it is. The past is what we conceptualize it as. And we are constantly changing our minds about things. This is what history is, and what it always has been, sort of. Though the actual academic discipline is quite young, the people who were writing history all the way back to Herodotus were doing the same general sort of thing, even if they didn't really know it yet. Historians are arbiters of the past, and they quite literally create the past. What you read in your history textbooks growing up was not actually what happened, but what someone told you happened. Someone who is in no way, shape, or form an impartial voice, as nobody really is. So how specifically does history change? Historians work by analyzing sources. This usually means written text. They then attempt to extract what they believe to be a close approximation to an accurate picture of the past from those sources. Sometimes sources lie, and historians don't notice until half a decade later. Sometimes new sources shed light on aspects of old ones you hadn't really considered. Most often today, however, it's a change in perspective that changes history. We're changing as a culture. We're no longer accepting of things we used to be, and we're welcoming things we used to shun. Black historians shed new light on history of race in America, and LGBTQ historians offer a unique perspective on the past that we rarely saw, at least in mainstream history before. But anyone in current year can write a book. That doesn't mean what they're saying becomes mainstream history. When someone posits an idea, that idea is then challenged by the historical community. Usually the work of history is challenged based on how well the author approached the subject, if they accurately use sources and such. Maybe they purposefully neglected some sources to push some sort of narrative. Usually, if these issues are egregious enough, they get caught. And this is why when someone posits some fringe idea that contradicts established consensus, meaning what we now consider as a collective to be the truth, then it doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong, because always there will be dissenting voices, but that you should be very careful. Look for some sort of discourse around the work. If there is none, be wary. The people who know their stuff maybe haven't gotten to it yet. If there is discourse, and it's overly negative, then odds are the historian is writing bad history. History is very open to dissenting voices, but not if they're dishonest. If the discourse is positive, then odds are it's now part of the historical consensus. The job of the historian is to convince others of the quality of their work, and that it represents some approximation of the truth. If they can do that, then you can usually trust them. And this is the reason why you can trust things like the 1619 Project, while you can't trust the works of author Grover Furr, who for some reason really wants to defend Stalin. To sum it up, the past is written in the present, and so it changes with us as we change. Historians change the past all the time, and the reason you feel alienated from history, as brutal as it is because you're not keeping up. There can be many reasons for this. Maybe you've been trapped into some conception of history that's false, that's divorced from the consensus by media like TV or video games, or maybe even the education system failed you. That last one, I think, is most to blame for a lot of people having trouble keeping up. When history is changing, it's becoming more accurate. It's becoming better. If we had resisted that change in the past, then we'd believe all kinds of wacky stuff. It's our duty to evolve our conception of the past, not entrench it somewhere where it will fester into something ugly. Thank you so much for watching. This video was made possible by my fine patrons, as well as everyone who watches my videos. So thank you so much for that. If you are interested in finding me in various social media platforms as such, you can find my Twitter in the description, you'll find my Twitch, where I live stream, and you'll find my Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this overly simplified explanation was of some use to you.